Hello and welcome back to the FSF podcast. I am Tim. I am your host, and I am the head nerd around this here ranchero. Although this is the temporary ranchero because, well, stuff. Anyway, normally there'd be a whole wall of Funkos and things behind me, as you, our regular viewers and listeners, would know. But today, temporary ranchero. Next time, maybe full on ranchero. Who knows? We'll see. But we have an awesome guest for you waiting in the wings today. Our guest today is an actor currently starring in one of the summer's biggest movies. And of course, I'm talking about Superman for DC. Now, our guest has also been in Stranger Things, The Marvelous Miss Maisel, Young Sheldon. He's lent his voice to X-Men 97 and Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. And there's a whole lot of other things. He's got a really cool work history if you take the time to go through it. We'll have a link down below for his IMDb page where you'll be able to check out all the things that he's been on and where you have heard him or seen him before. That guest is by the name of Martin Harris. Let's welcome Martin to the show. Welcome to the show, Martin.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. I was pretty excited when I was talking with your rep and they're like, yeah, Martin. I'm like, yes, I'd love to talk to Martin. That'd be great. Martin would be great. Let's get Martin on the show. Let's do this thing. You've got a really cool work history, bud, and so I'm really excited to talk with you and about some of these things. But before we get into any of that stuff, the first question I always like to ask all of my guests, because I like to know what makes people tick and why they do what they do and why they chose the career path and what they're doing in life. So when it comes to the story of Martin Harris, what was the thing that got you here? What made you decide to be an actor and entertainer?
It's a very complicated story up until the time when I started, when I was 32. But I'll tell you to skip all the levels, although I might come back to that. It was a conversation I had with Kobe Bryant, whom I knew at the time because of my involvement with NBA basketball. I knew him for about 10 years at this point, and something was telling me that this is what I was looking for to do. I was trying several different careers. I would be music, then media, broadcasting, all kinds of stuff, and I couldn't fully feel like I'm fully fulfilled doing that. So something was telling me that acting could be just that thing, because it allows you to play different characters and be different people and be curious about different things at the same time. So I had this conversation with Kobe Bryant in 2007 after the game. We're walking to the parking lot in the Staples Center, and I told him that I have a very good career back in Europe, but it just doesn't feel like something that I want to do for the rest of my life. Should I still stick to it, or should I move to Los Angeles, where I don't know a single person, and go to acting school? He said, "What is your heart telling you?" I said, "My heart is telling me to try." He said, "Then always follow your heart." And so I moved. A couple of months later, I moved, and yeah, I've been here ever since pursuing this.
Okay. Well, hey, if you're going to get direction from somebody, I would say that's a pretty good person to get some advice from. He followed his heart, he chased his dreams, and look where, I mean, he had an amazing career doing what he wanted to do.
He mentioned something that seems, right now and even back then seems absolutely ridiculous. He was saying me, when I was a kid, everybody was telling me I had no chance in basketball because my father was a professional basketball player, and it's very rare. And at the time, it was very rare. Now I think it's more common, but at the time, it was very rare that a kid could follow his dad's footsteps and be not only as good but better. So he said that he was living with that burden since he was a kid, and that kind of drove him to be the guy that he was. That kind of put him on edge throughout his career. That he was always chasing things, chasing to get better.
That's interesting. Yeah, because I mean, when I was growing up, and I've been an avid sports fan for a lot of years. It always seemed that if and when somebody had a child and they made it to professional sports, they never were able to get to where their parents were. So that's kind of an interesting.
Yeah, if you look right now at LeBron and Bronny James, I mean, he's just starting. He's a young player, but it's
right.
it's going to be very, very difficult for him to live up to his father's legacy. That
Though, yeah,
seems very, very, very hard, you know.
yeah. Well, I mean, hey, I enjoy this little basketball tangent we're off on. I kind of neat. I mean, but yeah, I mean, he's already head and shoulders above where look at guys like Michael Jordan, his boys.
Yeah.
Uh, they both played basketball, but they weren't able
Mhm.
to get to higher levels.
Yeah.
Same with Scotty. I think Scottie Pippen actually has a son who's in the NBA now, but that's a
He's
lot
doing
to
well. He's doing well. Yeah.
yeah. But each of those guys, that's a lot to live up to. I mean, to be what Scottie Pippen was, especially for Bronny. You look at the shoes that he's got to fill.
Yeah.
LeBron's one of arguably one of the top 5 players, in depending on who you talk to, could be the top player depending on who you talk
Mhm.
to. Um, I'm not in that camp, but
Neither am
you,
I. Although I do
but
respect him quite a lot.
oh, for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
you got to respect the talent, absolutely. But yeah, still Michael Jordan for me. But
For
that's a
me
whole nother
too.
topic. All right, well that's kind of cool. So, what were you doing back in Europe that got you in contact with the NBA?
I was, I had a band as a teenager, and this band didn't make it. After 3 years, we had so many differences in how we want to, what kind of music we want to play. It was at the time when grunge became the thing, and I tried to play heavy metal. I tried to play the old school heavy metal, sort of.
Ah,
So yeah, I mean, even if now I'm a huge fan of grunge, at the time this is just not the type of music I wanted to do. So we couldn't come to agreement, and my big dream was abandoned. So I didn't know what to do, and a label asked me to write for them, and then I started writing for a rock and roll magazine. But
okay,
it was hard for me to support myself doing that. So I decided I always liked sports. It could be because I was like kind of lost at the age of 18 and 19. It was hard for me to find out what I really want to do. Like didn't want to
sure,
really study, didn't really want to get like a regular job. That's never something I wanted to do. So I was like, what could be the thing that will allow me to travel and have a fun
yeah,
life. So I decided to do that, and because I spoke some English, not like now, but spoke some English, and not too many people in Poland at the time still did. Now they do, but not at the time. That's like mid to late '90s. So and I liked NBA basketball in high school. I got into it. So I just became uh, I started specializing in basketball, and I was living in the city of Wrocław, which is the Polish kind of capital of basketball. That's the city where
okay,
basketball is extremely popular. So I was surrounded by all that basketball, and somehow, I was a good writer, and they started sending me over to United States, and I started going to United States. I met Kobe in 1998 at the All-Star weekend in New York, my first trip to America. And then I
excellent,
started coming, yeah, like once or twice a year, and I love it here. I always thought, and now being American citizen, I always thought that this is a place where I feel like it's more of my it's more of my personality. Like it's
okay,
very ambitious, but at the same time it's fun, and you can the sky's the limit. Where in Poland I felt at the time, it's more like you start your family, you have your job. If you stand out too much, the people don't like it. If you're falling, they will help you, but if you stand out, they don't. It's more like, like the society is a little bit different, where I was always
sure,
more
understood,
adventurous type. So America had always appealed for me, and I'm glad that I came, and I'm here, and I'm American, and I'm here.
excellent, okay. So now I have to ask that you were in a band and you're grunge music. This is not something I found out about you, so this is kind of new and fresh. This is kind of fun information for me. So,
Mm.
because I am also a grunge music fan, I grew up in the '90s, and I was right there as the grunge music was happening and all that kind of stuff. So, what instrument do you play, or were you a singer?
I was a singer and composer and a little bit of bass. But like I said, at that time, my favorite band and still is was Pink Floyd. And I also love Black
Okay,
Sabbath and Iron Maiden. So I tried to play what you can what you can call progressive metal. And the
okay,
grunge was not the thing that I appreciated at that time. Then later on, I got into grunge like a lot. Nirvana became one of my favorite bands. Pearl Jam,
Sure.
Soundgarden, all those bands. I love them. Stone Temple Pilots. Loved all of that.
Absolutely.
By the way, if you go to my Instagram, I started doing a little thing during the pandemic that I started putting my list of 100 favorite albums on in my stories, and right now I'm at 9,530, and I had them all saved in my stories. So I want to finish at 10,000. So I have like 10,000 albums with voice samples stored in my stories, and I can always go back and I'm like, oh, I haven't listened to that album. I haven't listened to this album, so I can go back and re-listen.
Nice. I did not get that far back in your Instagram page. I am going to go that far back in your Instagram page now because, yeah, that is something I would very much pay attention to. Recently, I started this. I started following this thing online. It's 1,001. It's called the 1,001 album generator, and it assigns you a different album every day, and it can
Oh,
be from different genres. It could be from different
okay.
eras, and it's a lot of fun. And the next morning you rate that album and give or and write a small review, and then you submit it and it gives you a new album. And I think
I'll
I'm
check
at
it out.
a yeah, it's really cool. I as for a music fan who likes to have a little bit of eclectic taste in music and try out different things, and it's really fun, and it'll take you to Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube, wherever that album can be found. It'll give you direct links for it. It's really kind of a cool site, and
Yeah.
I think I'm 125 days in or something like that, but
I'm
it's been
definitely
a lot of
checking it
fun.
out. I'm definitely
Yeah,
checking it out. Listen, music is extremely important for me. I spend hours every day listening to music. I listen to a music. I'll tell you how I work. So, like when I was working on Superman, I would, and on the way to the set, I would listen to death metal. So today
nice.
I'm taping an audition for a role, and there's two scenes that are happening, and there's a jazz music in the background from the '70s. So I'm
Oh, cool.
listening to that music to get myself in that headspace.
I
This is
like
very
it.
important to me, and I'll tell you, and like James Gunn, he had a band too. I listened to that band before I started working with the guy because it gives me like almost an insight to his head,
Sure.
the type of music he created. He had a punk rock band called The Icons, and I listened to that band prior to coming to set. And also I recently found a playlist for Peacemaker season one,
Oh
and I was
yeah.
surprised how many bands from that playlist I haven't heard of. I felt that I know everything about hard rock from the 80s and early 90s, and there were some bands I didn't know.
Yeah. You know what?
Yeah.
That's one of the things I've always loved about James Gunn movies is that they're all
Mhm.
the music, the soundtrack for them is always very good. I love the music for the Guardians of the Galaxy
Yeah.
movies. I love the music for the Peacemaker series.
Oh, unbelievable.
And
All those obscure
yeah,
hard rock bands
yeah.
from the 80s.
Oh, it's
Crazy.
fantastic. It's
Pretty Boy
fantastic
Floyd.
stuff.
Who knows Pretty Boy Floyd? Now
Yeah.
a lot of people do.
Yeah. Wouldn't have known him before then, but they do now. So yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff. And there's a couple songs from the Superman movie that I can't stop. I have them like on repeat right now. I just
I'm a
um
punk rocker.
that one and the one from Noah and the Whale, the 5 years time, I think it's called.
Mhm.
The scene where Mr. Terrific is kicking everybody's butt in the sand,
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah,
that's
yeah.
the song
Yeah,
that's playing
yeah,
as terrific balls are just going off and
yeah, 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 yeah.
smacking people. So
Yep. It's
yeah.
funny because my first or second role in my entire life on a TV show was in Puerto Rico in 2016 on a show called Startup. And there was this guy working on the show that everybody was telling that he's great and he's gonna go places. And that was Eddie Gattegui. That's Mr. Terrific.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
So I
All
kind of
right.
followed his career since because he had a really good role in the show. I had small role, but they flew me back and forth, and I met one of my best friends now who acted with me in that show. And
Nice.
we remembered Eddie Gattegui, that the guy was sensational. Like he was really great. And then like 2 years later, I ran into him at Staples Center, and we talked about it briefly, about the startup, and that was before pandemic, before startup got kind of a second life, a more important life, because initially it was on Crackle. I think the experiment that kind of failed. It was
Oh, okay.
Sony's platform that they tried to launch, and
Yeah.
I think it didn't kind of work out. So they put it on Netflix in 2020, and suddenly, people sitting at home, and the show became super popular, became a hit almost 4 years
Right.
later.
Yeah.
and it had some great actors, Martin Freeman, Ron Perlman,
Oh yeah.
a bunch of other people were in the show. Adam Brody, I think, was in the show,
Okay.
and I remember Giannis, the Milwaukee Bucks star who won the title that year. He
Oh
was
yeah.
telling that's his favorite show, so that was fun. Yeah,
That's cool. All right.
yeah,
Well, speaking of your work and shows and things along those lines, um, now we as we mentioned in the intro to this, that you're part of the biggest movie of the summer, Superman, which is a really great entry for the new DCU. Now, in that movie, you play the General of Boravia. Now, what did it mean for you, both personally and professionally, to be in such a high-profile IP? I mean, this is a huge property.
yeah. That was one of my dreams, growing up, and I didn't think about acting when I was growing up, but I was a big fan of Superman, and I was a big fan, even bigger fan of James Bond movies. But those were my two favorite characters. Those were my like, I would say, those unrealistic dreams, like thinking about it, like would be cool, a cool thing to do, be like in Superman or James Bond movie, and I didn't even think it would be ever possible. So that's almost ironic that happened. But in the last couple of years, when I started working a little bit, I started working more. I started working on some nice shows and films and some big budget stuff. I was chasing Superman when I heard, and ironically, when I auditioned for it, I didn't know it was Superman. Only after I
Oh,
booked it, I
cool.
realized it was Superman.
That's even better. That's kind of a cool story. I
Yeah,
I've heard a couple different people where they got, you know, the product, they got the project that, they had auditioned for, but they didn't know what it was, and they find out later that it's this big budget thing, and then
yeah.
they're, you know,
It was called
so yes.
Genesis. Genesis. That was the title I auditioned for. Genesis.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well, that actually makes sense because this is the first entry. Genesis was the first entry of the Bible. Yeah, makes sense. Beginning of things. So yeah, so that's kind of a cool. That's actually, I really like that story. That's cool. All right. So yeah, it's fascinating to me that the movie there, that just how well that movie has been cast. I mean, I think I know a lot of people are upset because there's the Zack Snyder fans out there who still wish Henry Cavill was Superman. I liked Cavill as Superman, but I thought Cornsweet did a really good job at it. I loved everybody in that movie. They were cast. You were perfectly cast for your role.
thank you.
Uh, yeah, it's just that's one of the things I think that James Gunn does really well, is that not only does he pick good music and good soundtracks, but I think he picks the right people for the casting of the project, and make sure that whoever it is, they look the bit, they sound the bit, they feel the bit. It's not trying to squeeze a round peg into a square hole.
Yeah, I think when I auditioned for it initially, it was only for, I think, two scenes. Then they added third scene about a week before. I was communicating with Katie, who was James's assistant. We were talking a lot about what's going on, what's my character. Although only regarding to what I do, I didn't get the full script, so there was a lot of guessing. I think he left a lot of room for interpretation. He wasn't trying to spoon feed me exactly what he wants. Then on set, of course, he gave me some specific cues. But first it was two scenes, then three scenes. Then he added three more scenes on the day. They thought about it, and then they did it. They added into all the press conference scenes pretty much on the day of filming. So I think, looking back, the choice I made during the auditions, and the fact that I knew that I grew up in communism my first 12 years of my life, and I'm a big student of history. My father is professor of history of arts, but he also studied history. And I was history was like the biggest thing for me. The first 15 years of my life, all I read was just his history books. I knew history of that region, and I was thinking about when I was thinking about auditioning for the general who works for president that is kind of a despot, that is kind of a tyrant. I
Yeah,
thought immediately that he can't be a tough guy per se. He has to act tough to his soldiers, and in a situation where he's surrounded by other Boravian people. But when he's with the president, he's kind of scared. He's intimidated by him because he knows what can happen. It's like Joseph Stalin, who was the dictator in the Soviet Union. On one end, he won World War II because he didn't come like say Soviet forces. I think lost like
Right.
8 million lives during World War II, and he was just pushing people to the limit. And if he didn't like a general, he could shoot them, right? At any point. He executed a lot of his officers, a lot of his generals. I was thinking about someone
Right.
like that. That I serve a guy like that can take my life at any moment.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great history example. I mean, not great, but I mean, if you're going to pull from an example in history, that's definitely one you could look at as to how a dictator is going to operate, and even his generals underneath the dictator and how they're going to operate. So, yeah, I think that's probably a good example to pull from. Okay, Martin, thank you so much for being on the FSF podcast today. Where can our viewers and listeners go to find out more about you, your work, or anything you've got coming up?
You can go to my Instagram. That's the only social media I'm pretty much using. It's Martin_Harris LA, and I post by my work. I also post my music, my art. I'm an art collector. I have about 40 paintings. Some from 18th century are pretty rare, and some from South America, and some from current American art as well. So that's my new passion. I post about my art. I post about my music. I post about my movies. You're not gonna find any sexy photos from me, unfortunately. You're not gonna find any silly videos, but who knows? Maybe at some point.
Okay, very good. All right. Well, I'll make sure to put links down in the show notes down below so people can check out your work and they'll be able to follow you as well. And now, guys, hey, if you haven't already, now it seems like a really good time to remind you that following the FSF podcast on our YouTube channel is a free action for you. It costs you absolutely nothing to click the subscribe button and like this video. So we ask that you do that because not only does it help us to get more amazing guests like Martin Harris to come on the show and have these great conversations for you to listen to, but well, it means more to us than we can really ever describe. So please click the like and subscribe button. It's free, it costs you nothing, and it helps us out a lot. Pretty please, sugar on top. Anyway, and go check out Martin's work as well. And if you haven't watched Superman yet, you are really missing out. It's an amazing, amazing show with a killer soundtrack. And I am so excited for everything else that's coming in the DC universe coming up shortly here. So, Martin, hey, thank you for being on the show today. Really appreciate it, bud.
Thank you.
And for everyone else, thank you for listening and or watching the FSF podcast. And may the force continue to be with you as you live long and prosper. Goodbye.
Copyright 2025 FSF Podcast. Reference to any specific product or entity mentioned on this podcast does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by FSF Podcast. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. If you have any questions about this disclaimer, please contact us via email at info@fsfpodcast.com.